Today we're going to be taking a look at Voyage of the Dawntreader by C.S. Lewis. Now this is a story that revolves around the four main characters, Eustace, Lucy, and Edmund and Caspian. Eustace is a new character introduced in this story, and he's kind of a priggish and lazy boy. His cousins Edmund and Lucy are staying with him, and they are transported to the world of Narnia by way of the painting. And there they are picked up by the ship the Dawntreader because they are plopped down in the ocean. And part of that crew is Caspian and Readability, which are characters that we met in the previous book, Prince Caspian. This story takes place 3 years after the events of that book. Along the way, they end up on the Lone Isle, which is one of the domains of Narnia. It is being ruled by an illegitimate ruler. They're captured and to be sold as slaves, but they are able to dispose of that ruler and restore it to its rightful place as one of the domains of Narnia. They visit several islands along the way, but two are significant in the development of Eustace and Lucy. On one island, Eustace discovers a cave of treasure, and one of those pieces of treasure is a bracelet that he puts on it, transforms him into a dragon. Now, he goes back to confront the crew of the Dawntreader, and they are initially fearful of him because he is a dragon, but they realize that it is Eustace. He's converted back into a human, and after that, he's not so priggish and lazy anymore. He turns out to be more cordial and much more hardworking as part of the crew of the... On another island, they encounter a group of invisible people called the Duffers, and Lucy discovers a library full of books, and one of those books contains a spell that can turn them back visible, but it also contains a number of other spells. One of those spells can make her beautiful because she's struggling with this issue because she's not beautiful like her sister, but she realizes that would cause war, so she doesn't succumb to that temptation. But another one of the spells allows her to spy on her friends, and she does succumb to that temptation. She feels guilty for spying on her friends, and she later has to confront Aslan about that, and he does forgive her. Eventually, they get to the edge of the world, and Readability, who's one of the minor characters in the book, is allowed to sail to Aslan's country by way of a small boat. Then they meet Aslan, who comes as a lamb and is then transformed into a lion, and he tells Edmund and Lucy that they cannot come back to Narnia, but they need to find him by another name in their own world. The whole story seems to be like kind of this metaphor for a journey where you have all these characters that are looking for different things and going about these different adventures in their life, whether they're dealing with temptations or longings or desires or duties or moral aspects and different kinds of struggles that they're all working through, but to ultimately end up at that final destination, which is Aslan's country. So this book really does a great job, I think, of dealing with Lucy because she has a lot of different struggles, but her main struggle is with temptation to become beautiful or to spy on her friends like we see on the island. Eustace is also well developed in the story where he starts off as one way, being priggish and lazy, and ends up becoming hardworking and very loyal towards the end of the story. He has a kind of this conversion from what he was to what he becomes, and that is a very much a centerpiece of this whole story. One character that gets some attention in this book is Readability. He's a fan favorite among Narnia fans, and he expresses a longing to go to Aslan's country through the course of the story. And all the characters in the story are kind of dealing with a longing for something better, and they all kind of go along that journey. But he is very steadfast in that respect, and at the end of the story, he is allowed to continue on to Aslan's country. So let's score this one. I give this one a 4 for character development, mostly because I think C.S. Lewis does a great job of developing Lucy and Eustace in their particular arcs. This one definitely has better characterization than some of the prior novels that C.S. Lewis wrote in this series. In this story, we do get to see quite a bit of thematic development. I think it's not as strong as some of the other books, but we do get to see the journey played out. We get to see the characters deal with temptation and longings and the ultimate longing for heaven. And we get to see that revealed ultimately in Readability when he's allowed to enter Aslan's country. As far as plot goes, I think there's a lot to offer in this story. It's an adventure story. You get to see them move through different lands and encounter a lot of different danger along the way. So there's a lot of that more ad hoc adventure that you see in these kinds of stories that are journey oriented. What it lacks is a central conflict. It kind of does feel monotonous towards the end of the story. We do get to see internal conflict in some of the characters, and we get to see some interpersonal conflict, but without that central conflict, it just feels like we're going from place to place to place, and you see some ad hoc conflict in those places, but there's really no central conflict that kind of drives the plot forward, even though it still is a fun story. So this story, I think, does a good job of creating a nice setting. It's in the ocean, and it does really help develop this sense that they're on a journey, and the setting does help them deliver that by going from place to place to place to an ultimate destination, which is Aslan's country. And you really see that beauty revealed at the end of the story. So, like any book in this series, it will probably get a 5 in terms of readability, just because this book is masterfully written. Because C.S. Lewis is a great writer, regardless if he's writing fiction or nonfiction. So, from an entertainment value, I give this one a 4, and the only reason it doesn't get a 5 is because I think it does lack central conflict or strong central conflict that would really develop a nice plot. But it is a fun to read adventure story, so it would appeal to young audiences and old audiences, and it's been developed into plays and a feature-length movie as well. So the total score on this one is going to be a 28 out of a possible 35. I think this is a fantastic story for a lot of reasons, but it's a great adventure story that's got some nice character development into it, so I definitely encourage anybody that's looking for just a fun novel to read, this is a great one for that.